Good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. Thank you for everybody for coming. We're going to start by looking at the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or deletions? Glenn?
I would like to talk about video recordings on and posting them, especially the organizational meeting.
Okay.
And I have an in-camera issue too.
Let's put the video recordings under 3.3. And we'll add your closed session. We were also just circulated a letter from the Strathmore and Wheatland County Christmas Hamper Society. If we can add that under 5.2. And as well, when I was reviewing the minutes from our regular council meeting from October 2nd, I noticed I made an error when I did the motion to adopt the interim growth plan for the CMRB. I neglected to also adopt the interim regional evaluation framework, and I think we should officially approve that in council. So maybe we can add that under 3.4. Any other additions? If not, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Thanks, Jason. We're now going to go into our, sorry, all in favor. We'll now go into our public hearings that are scheduled for 9 a.m. Thank you for everybody coming. I'd like to confirm that the circulation was done according to the Municipal Government Act.
Yes, Madam Chair, it has been.
Thank you. If there's any written submissions, if they could please be presented to administration. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. So just for ease of doing the public hearings within the council meeting, I'll move that the process for the Wheatland County Council meeting as it pertains to the scheduled public hearings will be as followed. Public hearing, first reading if required, consideration for further readings of bylaw for those public hearings that have been closed. Further move that the above process will take place with the absence of resolutions to go into and out of council before and after each public hearing. All in favor? I will open the public hearing for bylaw 2018-20.
Thank you. This is a public hearing to redesignate plus or minus 6.43 acres from Agricultural General District to Country Residential District of Block 2, Plan 951-1739. Is to accommodate future subdivision of one lot. Purpose of the application is to allow for one lot from the titled parcel. The owners are currently building a new home on the subject parcel while living in a manufactured home. Once the existing home is complete, they'll have 90 days to remove the manufactured home from the parcel, or it can remain if located within the parcel boundaries of the second parcel once the subdivision is complete, if approved by the Municipal Planning Commission. Staff recommends that council undertake the public hearing for bylaw 2018-20. This is the map here, just showing the entire parcel to be redesignated. And here's the location as well. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now look at second reading for bylaw 2018-20. Oh, in the public hearing, sorry. Is there any public that would like to speak to bylaw 2018-20? Any staff comments? Anybody who would like to speak in opposition to bylaw 2018-20? Not seeing any, we'll close the public hearing for 2018-20. Now we'll consider a motion for second reading.
I move that we give bylaw 2018-20 be given the second reading.
Discussion? All in favor of Tom's motion? Consideration of third reading?
I'll move third reading of 2018-20.
Discussion? All in favor of Ben's motion? Carried. We'll now undertake public hearing for bylaw 2018-21.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is public hearing for bylaw 2018-21. This is to amend the land use bylaw. We are moving some permitted uses to discretionary uses within the Ag General District, the Rural Business District, Parks and Recreation District, Community Service District, and the Public Utility District. The purpose is to bring forward the changes from permitted to discretionary. This will allow MPC more oversight, transparency, and accountability for development permits. This also falls in line with Section 6401 of the MGA. Let's go down to the actual bylaw. So you'll see under the Ag General, we're basically moving the majority of the farm-related uses into discretionary. Same with rural business, and this will give MPC more oversight onto what's happening on parcels with regards to development permits. Do you want to see all the districts?
Has everybody reviewed them? I think we're good. Thank you.
And that's everything. Thank you.
Thanks. Would any members of the public like to speak in support of the bylaw? Does anybody have any concerns with the bylaw? Does staff have any further comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing for bylaw 2018-21. And we'll consider a motion for second reading. Discussion? All in favor of Ben's motion for second reading? A motion for third and final reading. Donna?
I so move.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? We'll now undertake the public hearing for bylaw 2018-30.
Thank you. Oh, just gotta go up. Thank you. This is a public hearing to amend the Wheatland County / County of Newell Intermunicipal Development Plan to incorporate the changes required by Section 631 of the Municipal Government Act. Bit of background: on April 1st, 2018, amendments to the MGA went into effect that require all municipalities to have an IDP. We already had one in existence with Newell, however, some updates were required to align it with the updates to the Municipal Government Act. The IDP was recently adopted in 2015 and did go through public consultation at that time, and these proposed amendments right now are pretty minor, so additional public engagement wasn't considered necessary by the counties. This will differ from new IDPs that are being drafted from scratch, which would require public consultation to take place. A notice of the public hearing was circulated to all residents within the IDP plan area, and also the public hearing was advertised in the newspaper in line with MGA requirements. Staff's recommending that council undertake the public hearing for bylaw 2018-30. Thank you.
Would any members of the public like to speak to the new bylaw? Does anybody have any concerns with the bylaw? Do any staff have any further comments? We'll close the public hearing for bylaw 2018-30. Consider second reading.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor of Jason's motion? Consideration for third and final reading.
So moved.
Thanks, Scott. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. We'll now open the public hearing for bylaw 2018-31 concerning the Goldfinch Area Structure Plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I received an additional letter from Nutrien yesterday that I'm just going to pass out to council.
Thanks, Kat. We'll just give council a moment to review this.
Through the chair, if there's any additional information, is there anybody in the public that would like to see what we're looking at?
Would anybody like a copy of the letter from Nutrien? Sure. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Kim. We'll start with staff comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in regards to comment, I'll just kind of go through the letter and address these points to begin, if that's all right. So point one, we'll make the change on the 3 mile. We had the info internally in our emergency department as at 1.5. That's why that had been put in the ASP, so we can shift that to 3 miles as an amendment prior to second reading. In regards to the zoning, requesting confirmation, they'll not be rezoned. If someone wants to rezone, they have to apply. It has to go through a full council and reading process. So that would all have to take place in regards to section 2. And the county typically only rezones if the applicant comes in and applies to rezone their land. In regards to section 3, if there was to be any changes in an open space green corridor, that would also have to go through council and be a part of plans and approvals and readings and rezonings and all of that, the standard process, and circulations would also occur. So those comments would come into play at that time if that was to take place. In regards to comments 4 and 5, staff doesn't really have any comments. Section 6, it's a proposed road network. Okay, Sue? Yeah, it's a proposed road network. It's not, doesn't show an existing road, so that's to be if there was to be future development continue in the plan area. Comment 7, yes, the county wouldn't connect existing facilities into the system, that if the offsite levies were to be approved by council and there was to be a regional water and wastewater system in that area, it'd be new developments, they would be conditioned that they have to tie into that existing system. There is case law apparently for tying in developments, however, that would be a council decision at a later, have to be a council decision at a later date if you were to want to go for that. Typically, staff would only tie in developments to new infrastructure if it was to be a new development that didn't exist prior to that infrastructure being there. Comment 8, I confirmed, yes, Orica does have emergency response capabilities. I confirmed that with our fire chief. And policy 9, in regards to irrigation rights, the comment and issues with that policy, that was a policy specifically requested by the Western Irrigation District to be included into this area structure plan. So if there are any pre-existing agreements in place in regards to irrigation rights, that would have to be worked out between Nutrien and the WID. But moving forward, WID wants to note, and I've seen it with other applications where they've wanted to remove the irrigation rights if a parcel is to rezone a portion of it to industrial or country residential. So those are staff's comments on this letter. In regards to, I'll just kind of do a bit of background on the area structure plan, and then we have Sue Patton, who is one of the planners with ISL who did the area structure plan. She has a brief overview of the area structure plan as well for council. So I'll just do quickly a bit of background. It's to provide a comprehensive, contiguous, and logical growth plan for industrial and highway commercial development in the area west of Carsland. The ASP was initiated by staff based on the direction of council to prepare an industrial and commercial area structure plan for this specific area. Interest in residential development east of Carsland also facilitated direction by council to prepare an off-site levy for the area around Carsland in regards to future infrastructure servicing. I believe that's still being worked on by SEMA through our Public Works Department as well. So this ASP is meant to guide and provide direction on how the county would like to see the growth of businesses in the area. It's quite significant consultation with a lot of attendees at the open houses. And in terms of the vision, goal, and objectives, it's to provide a framework for diverse industrial development and optimally located supporting uses that are sensitive to adjacent landowners and natural open spaces. In regards to the scale of the ASP, it's quite large. Staff doesn't fully expect it to be fully built out as industrial land. The fact of the matter is a lot of these type of industrial uses in this area have very significant setbacks and radiuses from other areas. So we anticipate that area will continue to be farmed. But by having such a large ASP in place, you can minimize future residential development from actually occurring in that area that would inhibit more industrial growth. So staff doesn't expect a full build out as more of an urban ASP would take place. It's built to create and allow for those buffers as well. So that concludes my presentation. So I'll just go to Sue's PowerPoint here and she'll just go through that really quickly. There's quite a bit of overlap. So.
So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sue Payton. I'm a planner with ISL Engineering, and we've been working with the county on this for several months now. So I'll just take you through a brief presentation. Colton has just gone through and read out the vision. I think it's important to note what this does and doesn't do. This, of course, sets forth a vision for future growth. It builds on the strength of the existing uses in the area, fosters economic development, establishes clarity for future development, and protects existing uses in sensitive areas. What it does not do is grant land use for those specific parcels, and that becomes part of the process as development occurs. Putting this together, these were the guiding principles that we took from the engagement process that we went through when we got comments from the public and stakeholders in the county on how to put this together. Providing complementary uses, Future industrial development shall complement existing development in the plan area. Complementary uses will ensure that the plan remains unified as phasing occurs. While the predominant use is intended to be industrial, there may be ancillary commercial and institutional uses that complement and support industrial development. The second was optimizing development synergy. The adjacent Highway 24 corridor and the existing rail alignment in the plan area provides an opportunity to develop industrial uses that can leverage these transportation networks and facilitate the movement of goods and services. Employment opportunities, a variety of industrial uses, and the potential for ancillary commercial and institutional uses will generate jobs for local residents and provide employment opportunities throughout the region. Mobility, some physical site constraints and legislated setbacks may preclude development within portions of the plan area, yet they provide an opportunity to align a network of linear open space corridors. Trail networks can be incorporated into open space corridors to allow for walking, running, and cycling, promoting a healthy balance of mobility choices and helping to maintain Wheatland's rural character. Development efficiency. Efficient design reduces capital and operating costs when land is developed in the future. Future development shall be designed with respect to ownership boundaries and natural constraints. The use of emerging sustainable engineering solutions and low-impact development practices are encouraged. Environmental protection. Areas which are environmentally and historically significant shall be protected, and future development shall be sensitive to the natural environment. Environmental areas that may require preservation provide an opportunity to ensure that the rural character of Wheatland County is maintained. And the development of mitigation strategies. Mitigation strategies such as landscape buffers, berms, fencing, and configuration of development shall be utilized to lessen potential negative impacts. Future development shall have a respectful interface with adjacent landowners, existing country residential development, and the nearby hamlet of Carsland. This is a summary of the public engagement. The development concept was prepared in consultation with plan area landowners, stakeholders, the general public, and administration via a series of meetings, workshops, and public engagement events. Feedback was gathered and used to establish the vision and guiding principles to inform the development concept and the policies within this plan. Setting the plan boundary was based on this rationale. Basically, it was an area where there was considerable industrial development already. There was a need to provide an adequate supply for future growth. The area was consistent with the strategic planning initiatives already in place for the county. There's access to rail and to Highway 24. There was deliberately a separation from the hamlet of Carsland. And within this area, there's a number of constraints that preclude other types of development. This is the development concept. It was created by translating the input gathered from the consultation process into a design that respects the physical and man-made constraints within the plan area. There are three interface areas. One, the areas adjacent to Rocky View County on the western boundary, the Highway 24 corridor, and several locations where existing country residential may be impacted by development. Overlay areas have been prepared to respect these interfaces, allowing for more control over areas where the effects of industrial operations require a higher level of mitigation or where the context of the location calls for specific policy. Overlay areas generally apply to development within 400 meters of the areas affected. I'm not sure if you can see on there, but the areas are cross-hatched, and I have it coming up on a future slide that highlights those areas. Given the land ownership pattern and the typical lot sizes required for industrial uses, Future development can be accommodated on a half-mile grid layout. The grid layout can be modified to accommodate smaller scale development and environmental constraints. The grid layout supports a variety of lotting scenarios and flexibility to adapt to specific development requirements. Examples of block patterns that would be acceptable subdivision layouts are included in the policies and within the ASP, and these can be adapted to meet needs of future development. The local road network may be revised without an amendment to the ASP, so long as adjacent landowners are not negatively impacted by the proposed changes and revised alignments are consistent with Wheatland County standards. There were 3 types of industrial development addressed in the ASP. For light industrial, the uses may include building and structures for the purposes of manufacturing, processing, fabricating, assembly, warehousing, storage, and distribution of goods or materials that do not create conditions that have a significant adverse impact or are dangerous beyond the boundaries of the site by way of noise, odors, airborne emissions, lighting, or vibration, and are not dependent on significant outdoor storage. These uses may include indoor storage depots, warehouses, and distribution centers. In the heavy industrial areas, uses may include land, buildings, or structures for the purpose of manufacturing, extracting, processing, fabricating, or distributing goods and materials that do create objectionable or dangerous conditions beyond the boundaries of the site. These uses may include resource extraction and processing operations, manufacturing plants, oil refineries, and rendering facilities. In the mixed industrial area, this was put in to provide for a mix of uses, including light industrial development that has minimal impact on adjacent landowners, and also businesses that are related to agricultural pursuits and limited commercial development adjacent to Highway 24. Uses may include buildings or structures for the purpose of light industrial development, as well as complementary uses, including warehouse, stores, agricultural services, service stations, and administrative offices. The non-industrial uses in the area, there are agricultural operations currently existing in the area, and these will continue to operate as such until such time as the land is redesignated for industrial uses. Country residential, existing country residential uses will also continue to remain as such until the land is redesignated for industrial uses. Commercial uses, limited complementary uses will be allowed, primarily in the mixed industrial area. Municipal amenities may be located within the Goldfinch Industrial ASP to adequately serve the surrounding community uses. Uses may include, but are not limited to, buildings and structures for the purpose of accommodating public or quasi-public services, utilities, or facilities. And open space, the natural areas within the Goldfinch plan will be used to create an open space network that connects a wide range of active and passive recreational amenities, as well as natural park areas where physical constraints preclude feasible development scenarios. These are the overlay areas. The first one is for the highway corridor. It generally applies to development within 400 meters of the highway. Commercial uses may occur in this area as ancillary uses to industrial development, in part functioning as a barrier between the highway and more intensive industrial activities, provided that they do not compete with existing commercial uses in the hamlet of Carsland. For the country residential overlay, which is shown in the lighter yellow on here, the proposed industrial uses may have impacts on these areas, and the policies provided in here will are intended to mitigate the impacts of any industrial uses on these country residential parcels. The interface planning between Wheatland County and Rocky View County is shown in the orange. And there will be the collaboration with Rocky View County will be required in these areas to come up with suitable mitigation strategies where it affects adjacent landowners in Rocky View County. And that brings me to the end of my presentation, but I would be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Sue. I'd now like to invite any members of the public who would like to speak for the bylaw in support. Sure. If you don't mind just coming up and using the microphone and just state your name, please.
Hi, my name is George Zackley, and I just had a question about the first area structure plan diagram that was up there. There were some yellow squares, areas there where there were some residences. And on section 10, there's actually 3 residences. It only shows 1. And I was just wondering if that should be pointed out at this point, because I believe one of them would be country residential and the other would be ag general, but they're occupied.
Colton, would you mind pulling that map up for us?
PowerPoint. Find the USB stick. Let's put it back in. Which map was it?
There we go.
Which quarter?
Right here on section 10.
Okay, I can pull it up in, this is based off our zoning map in Unisite, so we can reconfirm. We can do a reconfirm prior to the, just to make sure it's, the final print, it has all the correct zonings on it with the zoning, but this is based off what we have in Unisite. So it may be zoned ag, it might be over that 5-acre threshold, the parcels, do you know? Or
I don't know for sure, but one's a 14-acre parcel, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's ag general, and I think the other one is a 57-acre parcel,
Yeah.
which is ag general. But
Thank
there are residences occupied on both of those.
So through the chair, this is just showing existing country residential zoning. Residences would be, they might just be on the ag land, right, as a development permit, so that'd be why they're not showing on here possibly. But we can reconfirm all the zoning.
Great.
And my second question would be, on the map that showed the setbacks along Highway 24, and the North Range Road there.
Not here.
If there are going to be levies assessed against the development of those lands and these are restricted, how are the levies going to be directed against these restricted areas?
Colton, can you speak to that?
Through the chair. So the offsite levy plan area encompasses not only this area structure plan, but also areas to the east of Carsland as well. And there'll be a separate bylaw process, public hearing and notification process for that. They also have to hold an open house for that levy to get public input as per the Municipal Government Act. So at this time, I can't comment on how that levy would be assessed. It's not planning working on it either. It's our Public Works Department as well, and SEMA as our external engineer. But there'll be a full public process, and council will have to give support to that levy. The adoption of this ASP does not mean that that levy would be adopted by council.
Also, Colton, with offsite levies, isn't it only when the land is developed, right? That's when it's applied?
Yeah.
So if the land stays in existing use, there'll be no levy, a charge to it.
No, I understand that, but.
Just to
with
make
that
sure.
here, we've got a restricted area. Should those areas be affected by the same rate of levy as those that are unrestricted? Because it seems like if you have a restriction there, there should be some sort of compensation in terms of how the levy is assessed.
And we'll note that for when we're looking at those offsite levies. Thank
Very
you for
good.
bringing that up. Alan?
Based on Mr. Zackley's comments in regards to the residences, perhaps we should look at a map that shows the residences and not just zoning. Because I think what Mr. Zackley's getting at is very pertinent, that if there's a residence there, it doesn't matter if it's zone ag or country residential when it comes to the effect of heavy industrial around it. So perhaps another map overlay might be in accordance.
Through the chair, that's correct. We have policies that speak to development permits for houses, so we are covered through policy, but we can add a map to show the actual existing dwellings as well as the zonings into the area structure plan.
Thank you. Are there more members of the public that would like to speak in support of the application? Are there members of the public that would like to speak with concerns to the bylaw? Does staff have any further comments?
Through the chair, we could, if council wants to consider second reading, we could make the changes with the map and then bring it back for third reading, if that works at a later date. Or we can make the change, or if you choose to give third reading with those amendments noted, we can amend those in as is.
So, not seeing any other members of the public that would like to speak, we will close the public hearing for bylaw 2018-31. Council's wishes. We want to consider second reading and bring the amendments back for third reading.
I'd like to do second reading and bring back amendments for the third. So
They
I
won't
so
be
move.
significant changes, so I think that's
And
acceptable.
Colton, can you make sure you have the residents that are just on the outside? I would say Range Road. Oh, I don't know what that is now. On the south end of the south part of the plan? Thank you.
Are you making a motion for second reading?
Second, yeah, motion for second reading.
Discussion? All in favor? That concludes our public hearings. We'll now move into our consideration of bylaw 2018-22, a redesignation from Ag General to Community Service District. Oh. Do you need a break? Want one? Okay.
All right, good morning. I have the request for decision for bylaw 2018-22 for first reading. It is to redesignate 1.28 acres from agricultural general to community service district within the southeast 162621. It's adjacent to Township Road 262 and approximately 10 kilometers southeast of the hamlet of Rosebud. Staff is recommending that council grant first reading of bylaw 2018-22 to redesignate 1.28 acres to community service. With option 1 being that first reading is granted, with the first motion to give first reading and the second motion that a public hearing be held on December 18th at 9 a.m. in Wheatland County Council chambers for the public hearing of bylaw 2018-22. With regards to this particular application, the Community Service District is intended to support services such as cemeteries, parks and recreation, but community facilities. So in this case, this particular parcel is being rezoned for the purpose of a cemetery on the Midwest Colony lands. As you know, previously, earlier in the year, in the fall, the direct control district for the Hutterite Colony had been passed in order to accommodate a number of other uses that were more in relation to agriculture, what's the word I'm looking for? Institutional uses, and so in this case, the cemetery itself was not part of that direct control district because, as per the Cemeteries Act, it is required to have its own zoning, in this case for community service, and be subdivided out as its own parcel. So this particular area was not included as part of the direct control, so it maintained its agricultural general district, and it is now being requested to be rezoned to community service. As previously mentioned, it is intended for strictly the Hutterite Colony, and it's not meant for the general public to use. So with regards to legislation, we do have components within the Regional Growth Management Strategy Plan for community development, as well as the Municipal Development Plan for institutional development, and the Land Use Bylaw for the Community Service District. So traditionally, in the Municipal Development Plan, it does state that institutional uses are intended to be focused in areas with existing communities or within a hamlet for the general public. In this case, it does technically go against the MDP policies. However, because of the certain circumstances for the Midwest Colony, the fact that they contain all of their institutional agricultural functions and residential functions within their quarter section, staff is recommending approval for this regardless of the MDP, mainly because it does promote the continued and existing use of the colony in the county. And because many of the policies, goals, and visions for the county is to support the varied communities that we do have in Wheatland County, staff believe this is an appropriate step away from the MDP policies so that the Midwest Colony can continue to function as it normally does, as do many of the other Hutterite colonies in Wheatland County. Further to that, the RGMS as well does speak to community development, and it does speak on the same level that we want to promote continued residential and community development in the county, and to promote the unique quality of life that some of our residences do have here in Wheatland County. So again, this would be supporting the RGMS and the MDP, and as previously mentioned, the land use bylaw, because community service does have a cemetery as a use, it would be the most appropriate designation for this particular parcel. With that being said, the circulation was done to external agencies and no comments of concern were received. It was also circulated to Alberta Environment, and we did not receive anything from them either. Internal circulation as well, there were no major concerns or comments with regards to this application. And with that being said, staff is recommending approval for this with a motion to give first reading and to have the public hearing scheduled for December 18th at 9 a.m. I'm just going to scroll down to some of the images here of the actual parcel itself so we can see where it is in relation to the Midwest Colony. So this is the parcel in relation to Rosebud, which is just in the top here. This is a plan put together by their applicant, their surveyors, so they did have it. It is also within the acreage size of over 1 acre, so it does meet that criteria as well as per the land use bylaw. And then looking at the site plan itself, so this map in particular is, I believe, from 2018. I believe I was able to grab this from our recent aerial photos. So it does show there is a building next to it, and I believe this is the school and the church, I believe, from what I can recall on our site visit. And so the intent is to use the existing approach that they've developed and then go up and have this parcel area here used for the primary function of the cemetery. As previously mentioned, the Cemetery Act does require a separate parcel and zoning. It also does require its own separate access. So that's also why this approach is a bit more defined than maybe some other ones that we have seen. However, many of the Hutterite colonies do have very similar outlays. Sometimes they'll cross over. In this case, it is contained within the space that they've designated. And the approach itself is intended, because it is existing, to be continued for use by the colony. One comment on here, don't know why it's got a line through the middle, there we go. There is an undeveloped, there is a developed technically road allowance that does split the colony lands here. Staff were notified by transportation that they had not received proper provisions to develop that road. And so prior to this coming to council, transportation and the Hutterite colony did work together to ensure the road was up to county standards. So to date, currently, it is up to county standards, and I believe transportation did come into council with an RFD to widen the allowance a little bit to provide for what was already developed by the colony lands. So the access that they are taking off of the undeveloped road allowance is to county standards. Otherwise, the remnant parcel with the rest of the functions for the colony does access off of Township Road 262. That is all from me, and I'm just going to go back to the first RFD here for the motions for council. Thank you.
Thank you, Odessa. Council consideration for first reading.
Question. I might have misunderstood, but the reason it aligns with those documents is because all of the amenities are on that quarter?
Through the chair, yes. So because the Hutterite colony in itself has all its provisions within its own quarter section, it is a little bit different than our standard communities where we have Cluny and Gleason with all their services contained within a formal hamlet. In this case, technically, yes, it doesn't meet the requirements of the MDP because it does ask for these services to be located in existing communities and hamlets and serviced areas. But because of the unique situation with the colonies and that they are separate from many of our hamlets and communities, the MDP, in a sense, isn't really upgraded and revised to meet these certain scenarios where we have communities that are completely separate from our standard ones that we have in the county. So in that case, even though it doesn't meet the policies, the intent of the cemetery use and function within the colony, to staff and to the overall vision of what the county is looking for community development and support of these communities, it does meet it, and we feel that it would be appropriate to continue to provide a recommendation of approval, mainly because of the unique situation of the colonies.
So hypothetically speaking, I couldn't, as a landowner, put a graveyard on my quarter section?
In the land use bylaw, it states that you do have to have it rezoned and subdivided. So if you had a separate quarter section outside of a community, technically, no, you would not be able to because it doesn't meet those provisions within the MDP. And so that's where it gets kind of tricky, is that the average landowner in itself, they most likely wouldn't be granted support for that. However, because of the unique situation of the colonies, they have all their functions within a quarter section and they have all their functions contained within an area, and it's strictly used just for them and for their families and their community. So it's a bit of a tricky one, and again, it is council's discretion if they do want to support the continued use of these cemeteries in Hutterite colony lands. There are already existing colony cemeteries. I believe pretty much all of them have their own. This is the newest one, so that's why it's kind of in the spotlight at the moment. They haven't had a chance to develop that yet. So this is the steps forward that we're moving on.
Go ahead, Ben.
I'll move first reading so we can move it to a public hearing.
All in favor of first,
I'll just say what I'm thinking. If I can't
hold it till the public hearing.
Okay.
We'll move on to consideration of bylaw 2018-32. Kim, are you speaking to bylaw 2018-32?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. It's just before the Vulcan.
You have all day, right?
No
Yes.
pressure.
I apologize.
No worries.
It disappeared. Today, we're looking at first reading for bylaw 2018-32. This is to amend our current land use bylaw 2016-01 to update update Direct Control District 1. We're going to add some setback requirements for Parks and Recreation District and the Community Service District. This was missed when we originally did the new land use bylaw. And as we work through our bylaw with applications, we find that, oops, we made some mistakes and have to change them. So the recommendation is that council choose option 1 to grant first reading for bylaw 2018-32, to amend the land use bylaw to update the Parks and Recreation District, the Community Service District with additional setback requirements, and we also want to provide clarification to Direct Control 1 for definitions, and how complaints are received. So motion 1 is to give first reading, and then motion 2 would be to set the public hearing for February 5th. I'm just going to quickly go through some of the things that we missed during our first original bylaw. So, as I said, during the review of the land use bylaw, we discovered some side setbacks had been missed, and we're looking to clarify that with this amendment. Also, since the Direct Control District 1 was created, some of the parcels have been consolidated, and those lands need to be indicated in the district and have to reflect the consolidation. Also, to assist staff and the public, the dwelling modular recreational vehicle and recreational vehicle storage are proposing additional wording to make the definitions more clear. And a new enforcement policy, I thought the policy was going to come before this, but could potentially be approved by council today, and to comply with the enforcement policy, we're looking at amending section 6.15 in the land use bylaw to amend some wording to reflect how complaints are being received. I'm just going to pop down to the actual bylaw here. So you'll see in direct control DC1, we're taking out the first legal land description that was consolidated in. Under the Parks and Recreation District, for side yard setback, we would like to amend a minimum of a 10-foot from the property line if not located within a hamlet boundary. And that is the same with our community service district. That was also overlooked. Under our definitions for dwelling modular, we would like to add under the standards that a minimum floor area length to width ratio of 3:1. So it would be 3 times as long as the width. And this will help us with some of the older modulars and mobiles that are out there. It seems that some of the A277 standards can be a little bit confusing, so we would just like to add that for the definition. Also, under recreational vehicle, we do have it throughout the land use bylaw that a dwelling is not a recreational vehicle. However, we thought if we put it in the definition, this might make it a little bit more clear for people instead of having to search through the land use bylaw. And then also under recreational vehicle storage, we thought we would also include the word leisure and include some additional things that could possibly be stored under the recreational leisure vehicle storage. As it was basically just RVs, and we'd like to expand that a little bit more to trailers and campers and motorbikes and Sea-Doos and whatever else people are driving out there. And then the last portion is 6.1.5, that verbal complaints, written complaints that premises are being used in contravention of this bylaw. And then we're adding section C where it'll say verbal complaints if the complaint involves a situation that involves a public safety risk or imminent risk of personal injury or property. We want to make sure that people can phone in and report those right away so we can get on them as quickly as possible. And that's everything for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Council consideration for first reading.
So moved.
Thanks, Ben. All in favor? A motion for public hearing. Thanks, Glenn. All in favor? Glenn? We'll now move on to consideration of bylaw 2018-35 regarding the Newell IDP. Oh, sorry. It's actually, so under our recommendations, it says Newell, but it's actually regarding the Vulcan IDP.
My apologies. It's a
worries.
copy and paste. I got caught on there.
You're only working on a few of them.
Okay, so this is first reading to amend the Wheatland County / Vulcan IDP to give first reading. And we're recommending that a public hearing be scheduled for December 4th, 2018 to commence at 9 a.m. in council chambers. I won't repeat the same spiel I had last time, but basically the MGA was amended. This is now bringing our IDP with Vulcan into compliance with those amendments to the MGA. We've been working on it in collaboration with Newell, so staff is recommending first reading approval as it will meet all of the new requirements of the MGA. Thank you.
A motion for first reading? Thanks, Jason. All in favor? Carried. A motion for public hearing? Thanks, Tom. All in favor? Carried. We'll now look at bylaw 2018-36. $263, if that helps. Volume 1.
So today we're looking at first reading for bylaw 2018-36. This is to amend our current land use bylaw 2016-01 to insert the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Interim Growth Plan and the Calgary Metropolitan Interim Regional Evaluation Framework, along with maps showing the affected areas within Wheatland County. It's staff's recommendation that council choose option 1 and grant first reading for bylaw 2018-36 to insert these plans into our current land use bylaw. The first motion would be to give first reading. Second motion is to set the public hearing for February 5th. The Calgary Metropolitan Region Growth Plan and the Calgary Metropolitan Region Servicing Plan will be, I believe it's already been approved by the province. So since writing this report, I believe it's already been approved. The interim plans, yes. And we would like to, these two interim plans are complete, are in effect, and the growth plan has already been approved. So in order to abide by those rules and regulations, we'd like to place it as a separate section within our land use bylaw. I'm just going to quickly go down and show you. So we've created this map to sort of identify that this is a completely different section of the land use bylaw. And the map identifies, this comes straight from the board, all of the areas that are within that region and also the area for Wheatland County. We've also amended a small part of this section just to explain the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board, which would be page 2 in section 2. We pulled a little blurb from the MDP because we just amended the MDP with a section about the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board. And we thought it would be good to put it in the land use bylaw. We've included the objectives as well. We also are including the actual participating municipalities to help people understand that this is just a Wheatland County document, that this is from the province, and a couple of other documents to help people understand what's going on out there. We've also created our own little insert map to help people identify if they are actually within this area. We're also including this map in our development permits. Is it subdivision as well, Colton? And our subdivision applications, because we will be looking at these documents a little bit differently going forward. And then, of course, the two plans as well. And I don't believe they're in draft form anymore, so we would have to get the current documents. And that's everything I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. A motion for first reading?
I'll move bylaw 2018-36 for first reading.
Discussion on Jason's motion? All in favor? Carried. A motion for public hearing?
So moved.
Thanks, Ben. All in favor? Carried. We'll move on to bylaw 2018-40, which is very similar.
Thank you. Very big agenda today. So this is first reading for bylaw 218-40, and this is to amend our municipal development plan and insert the actual interim growth plan and the framework. So basically the same thing that we're doing with our land use bylaw, we're inserting it now into our municipal development plan. And it's the recommendation that council choose option 1 to grant first reading for the bylaw 2018-40 to amend the MDP and insert the Calgary Metropolitan Region Interim Growth Plan and the Calgary Metropolitan Interim Regional Evaluation Framework. Wow. The bylaw, we're recommending that it be given first reading and to set the public hearing for February 5th. And this is going to give us time to actually send a letter out to our residents along with some mapping and help them understand what is going to be going on. So at that time, hopefully we'll get some people in for the public hearing. So that's everything for me. Thank you.
A motion for first reading.
Go ahead, Donna.
Thanks, Donna. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. A motion for public hearing for bylaw 2018-40 for February 5th, 2019.
I'll move.
Thanks, Tom. All in favor? Carried. We'll take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 10:10. And we're going to continue on with the planning matters. We will look at the Homesteads of Lyelta subdivision, SD 2016-18.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have the report before you in regards to this time extension request from the developer for the proposed application to extend the conditional approval granted by the MGB on May 18th, 2017 for a further 1-year term to November 18th, 2019. Council also has the option of approving an ultimate term extension length or refusing the application. Staff's recommending the council choose option 1, which is to approve a 6-month time extension for the development to subdivide 136 residential lots, 10 MR lots, and 2 public utility lots. That would then extend it until May 18th, 2019. I kind of go through all the background and summary in the report here as to what's still outstanding. In regards to there was a submission on October 19th, and I had SEMA do a quick 2-week review of that, and they did a quick summary. Just a quick 1 page of what's still outstanding based on their review. So those are just based on what's submitted, what still needs to be submitted. Where did my thing go? I seem to have lost the package. Okay, here it is. There it is. So staff's 6-month recommendations based on the fact that traditionally a year has been granted for subdivision time extensions beyond the initial year. That said, legal counsel was consulted, and if council chooses to refuse it, they're able to do that as well. It's fully your discretion on whatever option you'd like to proceed with. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Colton. Council, yeah, Donna.
I have a question, Colton. It says here that the owner must post 25% of the actual cost. Is it, like I've seen before, or I've heard before, it's 125%? What's the difference? Is this because it's a larger, I just want to understand it better. 5B.
Yeah, okay. There's still the 125% security overall. But this 25% is actual cost of construction on-site infrastructure. So 125% is in regards to the off-site, and it's still in there. Yeah.
Other questions?
I would like to go into camera to discuss the time extension with staff. I'll make that motion.
All in favor of going into camera? Under legal? We'll do it now. Favor? Ben moved. Carried. Further discussion on homesteads? Or a motion? Yes.
I'll make the motion that we provide a one-year extension for subdivision application SD 2016-18.
Discussion?
I've thought a lot about this. As I'm sure people remember, I wasn't the most favorable one last time extension. But I've, like I said, I've thought a lot about it, and as much as residential developments cost, we do need the resident base in order to have a better industrial. We have to have places for people to live and work. I believe we can't have one or the other. A year is more than enough time to get what is done, what has to be done. I don't think it needs to be a year. I agree with staff's recommendation, 6 months. If you can't get it done in 6 months, I think the county has done its due diligence in giving you enough time. If we're going to wait for the economy, you're going to be waiting a heck of a lot longer than a year, 2 years. To me, I think 6 months is plenty. So that's just where I stand.
Further discussion? Councillor Armstrong has asked for a recorded vote. All in favor of the one-year extension? Councillor Bigger and Councillor Clausen? All opposed? Did you get that, Margaret? Council's wishes for another motion?
I move that we give homesteads a 6-month extension as requested by staff.
Suggested. All right. Discussion? All in favor of a 6-month extension? Ben, is your hand up? No? Okay. Did you get that, Margaret? Jason, Donna, myself, Scott, and Tom. And Glenn. Oh, and Glenn, sorry. All opposed? Councillor Armstrong. The motion is carried. We'll move on to the application for an extension for SD 2016-20.
Thank you. This is a time extension from the developer to extend their conditional subdivision approval for a further one-year term to May 16th, 2018. The new date that the approval would be valid to May 16, 2019. For a further, geez, now it's all, yeah, this is all messed up here. They're looking to extend it to May 16th, 2019, and staff's recommending that we approve a subdivision extension request to be valid until that date for a period of 6 months. So the bit of background, it's all in the report. There's still a number of outstanding items. In this situation, though, they have completed their water, wastewater, stormwater requirements and road requirements as well. So the key pieces of the development are in place for this. The biggest holdup with this development is going back and forth on the development agreement and how to do the securities and whether they can be phased or not. So that's being worked on between Public Works and this particular developer. So as in with the previous application, our recommendation is for a 6-month extension based on past precedent at the county where subdivisions were granted at least 1 year of extension time beyond their initial year. I'll just go down, and all the conditions are outlined as to what's complete and incomplete in the report. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Council want to consider a motion?
I'll move that council approve subdivision time extension request for subdivision application SD 2016-20. That is the right one, right?
Yep.
Route 24 Junction Corner valid May 16th, 2019.
6 months. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. The CMRB plan area concept map.
So this map was prepared by Wheatland Administration and consultants on behalf of council. The concept map shows the county's vision for the CMRB plan area that encompasses a portion of Wheatland County. So this would be staff's recommending that council choose option 1 to approve the concept map as council's vision for Wheatland County's portion of the CMRB plan area over the long term. So it's formal recognition of the plan that had been drafted in previous discussions. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Colton. Council's wishes.
I also move that the council approve the CMRB plan area concept map.
Discussion? All in favor of Donna's motion? Carried.
Can I suggest that council further make a motion that under the Reeve signature, this gets sent by letter to the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board Chair?
Do you want a second motion for that?
If we could, yes.
So move.
Thanks, Jason. All in favor? The IDP with special areas number 2.
So I brought this RFD forward because I just wanted confirmation from council whether it's acceptable to move ahead without an open house for the consultation for this proposed intermunicipal development plan of special areas. Staff's recommending that council direct staff to undertake public consultation on the IDP as per the attached plan. Staff doesn't feel that an open house is necessary given there's approximately 7 people in the plan area. We could have it at one of their houses maybe, but so we've reviewed the public participation policy and believe that techniques such as direct mail outs, the website, social media, and newspaper will be more effective and cost appropriate given the scale of the IDP in terms of size, population, and previous development pressures. I've spoken with the special areas and they're in support of the proposed plan. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Council's wishes.
I'll move the staff's recommendation.
Discussion?
No.
All in favor of Ben's motion? Carried. We'll move to the enforcement policy. Or 2-4.
So we have for you today the introduction of the enforcement policy, which council has reviewed a couple of times in the planning and priorities meeting and committee of the whole. And this policy is to achieve compliance of Part 17 of the Municipal Government Act, our land use bylaw, development permits, and subdivision approvals. It's the recommendation that staff it's the recommendation of staff that council choose option 1 to approve the enforcement policy for the Planning and Development Department. The motion would be to approve the enforcement policy. The county's development officers are responsible to achieve and assess complaints in relation to the MGA, land use bylaw, development permits, and subdivision approvals. This proposed policy outlines a process to deal with complaints. The policy identifies how complaints are received, investigations, documentation, site visits, warning letters, stop orders, service of warning letters and stop orders, registration of stop orders on certificates of title, appeals, enforcement of a stop order, violation tickets, and enforcement costs. The MGA details when properties can be inspected, remedied, enforced, and by whom within the municipality. The MGA also describes the process of adding costs of enforcement to the tax roll when an injunction order is required and enforcement of a stop order. Part 6 of the land use bylaw outlines the procedures for enforcing the provisions of the MGA and also the consequences and procedures for non-compliance for landowners in the county, as well as the appeal process. There's many sections of the Municipal Government Act with regards to enforcement. There's also our enforcement and appeal section of the land use bylaw, and there's also the provincial procedures for the county bylaw officers. No, what they're called. Peace officers, thank you. To clarify, the reason we're putting this policy together for council is to clarify procedures for enforcement of infractions against the land use bylaw, approved development permits and or subdivision approvals. So option 1 is to approve the enforcement policy. Option 2, council can refuse the enforcement policy. And option 3, council can provide an alternative recommendation. The enforcement policy is attached, and that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Is council prepared for a motion? Glenn?
I'll move that council approve the enforcement policy for planning and development department.
Discussion? All in favor? Carried. We'll look at the Municipal Planning Commission process.
That's me again. Today we're introducing a Municipal Planning Commission policy to council. This has been reviewed by council in the Planning and Priorities meeting and also at the Committee of the Whole. This policy is to align with the Municipal Planning Commission bylaw and to facilitate an effective and efficient MPC decision-making process for MPC members, staff, and the public. It's recommendation of staff that council choose option 1 to approve the MPC policy to assist with the decision-making process. Just going to a few key issues. The Municipal Planning Commission policy is designed to assist the Development Authority and the Subdivision Authority to follow the provincial and municipal guidelines for making decisions on planning applications. The policy details scheduling and circulations of an application, materials for the MPC package, reports, conduct in an MPC meeting, decisions of Municipal Planning Commission, appealing the decision of MPC. The MPC policy will assist developers and applicants regarding the MPC process and expectations of how the meeting will be conducted. The approved MPC bylaw was established to comply with the Municipal Government Act and the subdivision and development regulations, and that was approved earlier this year. So option 1 is to approve the MPC bylaw. Option 2 would be to refuse the MPC bylaw, and option 3 would be to provide an alternative recommendation. And the MPC bylaw is attached in draft form, and that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Yes, Glenn?
Hi, Kim. You mean policy instead of bylaw?
I absolutely do.
Thanks.
Sorry
Okay.
for any confusion.
That's okay. I'm just checking on myself. Bullet 24. How do you envision that? I like it, but it's the 24 part. If MPC wants to invite somebody, what would be the process? Would we make a motion at MPC and then we'd have to table it till that person is there?
Through the chair, I believe they would need to contact our CAO if they wanted to do any type of presentation at the MPC meeting. Is that correct, Ellen?
It says here, MPC may request any person. Okay, that's, I know in past meetings when I'm chairing, I'll have members of MPC ask for a comment from the public, and now that's not allowed anymore, but now we may request a person. I'm just wondering how we can check that out.
Through the chair, I believe if you wanted to ask for legal counsel or something like that, or a consultant to come and speak, I believe you could request that prior to the meeting, but perhaps Alan has a different take on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, it could be requested at the meeting. Obviously, the person may not be in attendance, so then what would have to happen? It would have to be requested for a further future MPC meeting. The only thing we'd have to work through is the idiosyncrasy of the timing, right? So we have to make decisions in a certain amount of time. So that would be the only consideration that we'd have to think about in regards to that, because we only have a certain amount of time to make a decision at the MPC. So in future, if there is someone that should be in attendance, we will endeavor to make sure that they are in attendance.
Okay, so the MPC would be, that would be a voted on request, not an individual person of the board. Okay.
So, through the chair, just to Glenn's comment, I can see that getting long. I like what it's saying there, but if you change the wording of that to the MPC may request any person or persons attending the MPC meeting in an advisory, non-voting capacity to speak. That means if somebody brings their legal, or we have our legal, they've got to be at the meeting, then they can be asked to speak. But to hold up the meeting for another month so that somebody can bring them in, I would say if they want someone there, they have to have them there, then they can make the request if they're sitting in the room. So if we change the wording of that, they have to be at the meeting. So if you change that to attending the meeting, the MPC meeting, as long as you're sitting here, then if council wants to hear from them, then it's council's choice to ask them. If the staff wants to hear from legal or whoever it is, then you can ask them up, but they have to be at the meeting. So,
Okay, I agree, but the board, I would like it in there also to clarify that would be by way of motion, majority vote, not an individual request.
Yep.
So when the people are, we're playing on it, but the people, this will be supplied to them as they're applying, and they'll know right up. And if they want somebody here, they're going to have to get somebody on this side to make a motion.
Yep.
Is that a fair comment? Okay.
You just add to the end of that, maybe ask to speak after council, after MPC vote or a decision by
Something
MPC.
to make it clear.
Yeah.
With that change, I'll motion forward that we accept this policy.
Kim,
I should be making it to Amber. Yeah.
Kim, are you able to make those changes up there? No, you're not, because it's a PDF, right? So what Deputy Reeve Kester is saying, the MPC may request any person or persons attending the MPC meeting in an advisory non-voting capacity at the will of the MPC, of the board? Okay.
To speak.
Yeah.
To speak. Yeah, okay. We'll put Municipal Planning Commission in there. That's the board, so we'll just spell it out. You got that, Margaret?
Everybody has the motion? Further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Communication materials.
That's me again. Today we're introducing some communication materials for the county website and the county administration office to assist the public regarding planning and development process. We've been working on this all year. It has been presented to council through a planning and priorities meeting and also committee of the whole. It's staff's recommendation that council choose option 1 to approve the land, to approve the land use bylaw amendment, redesignation, and subdivision guidelines, subdivision and development appeal board procedure guidelines, and public hearing process guidelines. We have 3 documents in here. So motion that council approve those. Motion 1, that council approve the guidelines and redesignation, the SDAB, and the public hearing process guidelines. Okay, I've got it. The communication materials provide the public easier access to the process of submitting planning applications and assist with understanding the different meetings and committees that review and decide on planning applications. The guidelines for redesignation and subdivision details each step of the process of a planning application, from booking a pre-application meeting with staff to discuss the proposal to the final decision of the Municipal Planning Commission. The public hearing process booklet explains how the public hearing process works and how the meetings are conducted in accordance with the procedures bylaw. The SDAB procedures guideline is a step-by-step guide of the appeal process. This guideline details how to submit an application, materials and evidence, circulation, submission deadlines, the SDAB board reports, conduct at the hearing, and decisions of the board. These materials align with the approval bylaws, the approved bylaws for the SDAB bylaw 2018-08, the MPC bylaw 2018-11, and the procedural bylaw 2018-19. The Municipal Government Act regulates how bylaws are passed and when the public can participate in meetings, establishing the MPC, the SDAB, and the approving authorities. So you'll see attached here we have 3 options for council. Same as before, you can approve them, you can refuse them, or you may provide an alternative recommendation. And all of the reports and guidelines are attached. Our intention is, if council does approve these today, then we'll be in close contact with Mackenzie, our new communications officer, to have these branded and done up as booklets and get them on the website and available at the front counter for people. So it looks all nice and pretty. It won't just be text like this. So thank you.
Thanks, Kim. So we're looking for 3 motions.
I really like the idea of this. So motion 1, council approve the guidelines for redesignation and subdivision. I'd like to make that motion.
Discussion? All in favor of Scott's motion? Oh, sorry, Donna?
I still have a question on the sewage disposal system. Like we talked earlier about saying that that we can you can have a pump out system. It doesn't give that option here anywhere, so they are going to have to get in the technical studies. I don't know. I couldn't see anything anyway. Sewage disposal system assessment report will be required.
Please.
It's through the chair. So the current policy that council still has is that requirement for a PSDS, and we'll have to have, if pump out is to be accepted, that'll come forward as to whether council will have to make that decision through a separate policy. But the current policy that's still approved is that PSDS requirement.
Further discussion? All in favor? Carried. A motion for SDAB appeal board guidelines. Thanks, Jason. Discussion? All in favor? And a motion for the public hearing process guidelines.
I'll move.
Thanks, Donna. All in favor? Carried. We really appreciate the work that staff did on these documents. I think it'll make the processes more user-friendly for our ratepayers and more transparent, so thank you. The proposed fee increase.
Okay, with me on this one. This wasn't my RFD. I'm just taking it over right now. So, staff's recommendation is that council accepts the proposed fee increase for safety code permit applications for implementation as of January 1st, 2019. Currently, we utilize Superior safety codes to complete our inspections and provide administration support. We pay Superior 70% of all the fees collected, and the fees are paid on closed files only, while the county retains 30%. Most fee increases are about 10 cents a square foot or $10 a fixture, as well as minimum fees have increased for building permits. Wheatland County's fees have not increased since 2014, and there was quite a comprehensive comparison done with other municipalities, and Wheatland's fees were quite a bit lower. As we continue to see growth, permits have been increasing. This fee increase is minimal and fair, I guess that's staff's opinion. With today's economic conditions, we continue to encourage our ratepayers to obtain permits for their projects, and keeping the fees reasonable will make the process easy. As noted, we have an inspection agency perform the inspections, and they also issue orders under the Safety Codes Act and provide administrative support. So the draft fee schedule is attached, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Colton. Is council prepared to make a motion?
I just have a question. Are we recovering costs as is?
Through the chair, no. Planning and development never really operates as a cost recovery in any way. The amount of work, it doesn't, the time and salary, I wouldn't say it's a cost recovery by any means.
Further discussion?
Just a question, how often do the safety codes, do we hire different vendors, I guess, for doing it? Is it a review process, or how's it?
Through the chair, we've actually just gone out to RFP to relook at getting a look at all of them, and a committee's been formed with both planning department members as well as other members of the county. So we'll be looking to make sure we get the best bang for our buck.
Excellent. A motion?
I'll move that council accepts the proposed fee increases for safety code permit applications starting January 1st, 2019.
Further discussion?
Just a question to Tom. You're probably more familiar with fees such as these in the contractor business. Is this pretty?
Not only are the fees fair, the planning department and everybody, they're really good to work with. We've got really good people here, so yeah, they'll bend over backwards for us. So yes, it's fair.
Further discussion? All in favor of Tom's motion? Carried. Let's just really quickly go up to the adoption of minutes. We have the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting from September 13th. Any errors or omissions that were noted? All in favor of Ben's motion? We have the minutes of the regular council meeting from October 2nd. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. The minutes of the October 2nd public hearings. Thanks, Donna. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. You need a break? Okay, 2-minute break. I'd like to welcome representatives of Hussar Seed Cleaning Co-op. Welcome. Sure. If you want to just introduce yourself.
Okay.
And the meeting is being recorded and maybe on YouTube.
Sure, thank you. My name's Russell Nail. I'm the president of the Hazar Seed Co-op. I'd like to give you a little bit of history of our seed plant in Hazar. Our community came together in 1973 and raised sufficient funds to purchase land from the CPR. In August of 1973, a contract was signed with CVS Engineering and our plant was underway. The plant took some time to build as our official opening wasn't until October 21st, 1976. Our plant has grown substantially from cleaning 300,000 bushels back then to well over 680,000 bushels per year. And our trading is up to just over 189,000 bushels a year as well. Throughout the years, we have done a major rebuild in the 1990s, and since then we've added big truck scale as the farm trucks have gotten larger, and we've also put a building up around it just to help develop our seed plant in other ways. Our community takes pride in our seed plant as we are unfortunately one of the small businesses left in our small town. We have had many changes through the years. The reasoning for this letter to council is with the growing size of our business and the wearing of our machines and our bins in our plant, we are faced with a challenge of deciding what to do with our business. We have looked at all different avenues, from building a new plant in our small town, and unfortunately that just isn't an option with a $7 million price tag. So we have to look at, as a board, we've looked at possibly, closing the business, and we've went through all the options, and what we've decided to do, or what we would like to do, is we've had interviews with many different companies, and we would like to do a multi-phase renovation to our plant. The first phase is of the most extensive cost of our renovation, and we need to replace our grain legs, replace the bins, and add a new treater to our system. Phase one is just over $2 million, but with expecting overruns and whatever, we're applying for $2.5 million. We are presently applying for a loan from Alberta Finance Capital, and however, we do require assistance as for a co-signer and help to acquire the loan. The seed co-op does have our 25% down payment, and we can make our payments that will be required on the payment schedule. The co-op is asking the Wheatland County for their help in possibly co-signing the loan to keep our business alive. Also, I'd like to mention that the county did help us when we built the plant way back in 1976 with a loan, and we were able to pay it all back, and it's kind of an unusual request, but I guess we're just hoping that we might be able to have some help from the county with this. And Derek's got some, I guess, proposed plans on what our renovated plant would look like, and I'll turn it over to him. Thank you.
If you want to just push the button on your mic till it turns red here and introduce yourself, please. One more, it'll take probably two more. There, oh, sorry. Yeah, there.
My name's Derek Harms, and I'm the manager of the Hazar Seed Cleaning Plant. If you can see up in front here that our plant is the square box that has nothing really, it's just that gray square box. And that's the original plant. So what we're trying to do is add in some new bins on the exterior, brand new legs for faster speed of operating. And that's kind of the initial kickstart to getting it to work. So at the end of the day, we're trying to build a new plant, but very slowly, so we can financially handle it. We're putting in, the plan is to put a very expensive treater in, and that treater is kind of the means to everything to make, I just got to spin it here for a second. All right, thank you. So the treater goes under this bin here, and that's kind of the new technology in the world of treating now. It's very expensive, but it allows us to do anything we want, to put any kind of chemical on for the seed and polymers and inoculants, and it's kind of the new thing. It's just the jump start. So we've spent a lot of time and money trying to figure this out. This is our end goal in roughly 10 to 15 years, a brand new cleaning facility. Double the capacity of the old one. This one holds almost 15,000 bushels of dirty and 15,000 of clean, plus 6,000 of treated already in a bin for the trucks. Our plant capacity right now is 325 an hour. This one will be over 600, and it allows us to use our old plant as a separate entity if we want to continue to use it or remove it. It's just time. We've doubled. Our numbers have gone up huge. We're doing close to 700,000 bushels now, and there's room to grow more into other markets of just cleaning for export for people if we need to. Treating has become a very big thing. That's why we showed phase 1 first. That's key. A lot of farmers want to treat now, and they're too tired of trying to do it themselves. It's just getting too costly. So I'll just spin it here. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Need a big shovel now.
So, oh, we can zoom too, apparently. One more twist. Good enough. So yes, as you can see, this is the whole new cleaning facility on the side, which gives us more room and the ability to upgrade in the future. Our biggest problem right now with our plant is you can see the size. The machines sit underneath these square boxes. Well, there's just physically no way to put iron in there. So once we build this, you can pull and add and make bigger to whatever you require. So kind of built for the future. So I guess at the end, we need help trying to find, to be able to get assistance through Alberta Finance Capital and get a co-signer. We figure the first phase, which you can see is quite a scale of money, right? Because you got to put up lake towers and build a new basement, and it's a big infrastructure change. And then you just add all the other phases as you go. So I guess we need financial help to get there, and we feel we can pay the bill.
Does anybody from council have any questions or comments?
Just no question, just a comment that as Russell said, they've been there for 45 years, and the municipality did help them through the Ag Service Board on their original plant. That got paid off, and they've been progressive ever since. They've never been in a bad financial position out there, and they've got customers, and not just in Wheatland County either. There's customer base to the east that comes in, and they do need some improvements. So I think they've got some good ideas there, and I think we should be supporting them. We've done it with other ones. We did help with the Strathmore seed plant to get them going, and I think we can do the same here. I have no qualms about them paying it off. I'm sure it'll happen.
Just hit your button.
We do have customers coming now an hour and a half away from all directions now, which is quite a substantial outreach. And big farmers at that distance, not small.
Alan, can you just touch on the feasibility? I gave you the feasibility review report.
To be honest with you, that's not my place to talk about at this time, but I'll let these folks talk about kind of the feasibility and how they want to pay that back, if that's okay. I can give some comment if council wants.
So we did do a feasibility report. This also comes with it in the engineering designs. So we've done our homework on trying to figure out what things actually cost. This one is estimated, this cost at 1.8 million, but there's always overruns, so we're trying to aim for a little more just in case. it's 20 pages, I believe, of what everything goes into building this.
Could
and
I
how to make
ask
it work.
that that's be sent out to council, just that package that I gave you?
I guess, I don't know what council wants to do, but I would recommend council make a motion that administration bring back a recommendation in regards to this. I'm hearing that council may be in favor, if that's okay. There was some things in there, I think that there was some concern maybe that, I'll leave it up to these folks, what they want to provide. There is some confidential information in there, so I didn't want to provide it all to council. That's why I didn't bring it today, so.
I wonder if council might consider directing staff to work with the seed cleaning plant representatives in looking at what the options are, look at some of the feasibility. I wouldn't mind administration looking through some of your financials. It's not that I don't believe you, and I know Ben represents us in your area as well. So I trust that. Just for due diligence, I think council would need a report on that as well. Ben, you had a comment?
No, not a comment. I was just going to put a motion on the floor that we excuse me, have staff work with the board of the Hazaras seed cleaning plant and come up with a proposal that works for council.
I just had a question first. This is phase one. How many phases is there? And second is how much would the total project cost be and timeline? Just estimate.
So there's technically 4 phases we laid out, just depending on how things roll in the future. So we could try to hold our budget to so this is 1.8. The other one I showed you, right? This one here is about 5.5 million by the time you're done. That's in today's numbers. Things will change probably. We estimate roughly 10 years to get to this phase, we hope, if everything consistently stays to where it's at. But that's why we wanted to phase it, so we can handle the payment. We can't handle a $5.5 million payment at the rate we're going, right? If we can increase our business, which we strongly believe because of that treater, then we can either increase and say in 4 years, build that, if the money's flowing to make it work. If we get 3/4 of the debt paid, I'm hoping we can get help to continue to the next final goal, but one step at a time.
So I'll just add to my motion to have staff do that council supports it in principle and ask staff to work with them to come up with a proposal that works.
Any other questions or further discussion? Glenn?
Just one comment. When staff is looking at this through, if we buy it from the loan from the government, from the Alberta thing, that's a fixed term could be of length, very unaccommodating for the future. I'm thinking maybe we could look at just financing it with our own reserves too. We're much more flexible. It would be much easier to pay it down faster to move on to the next phases too, so you just don't keep piling up and bookwork and all that kind of stuff. Just my thought, just something that we should look at.
So that could be part of Ben's motion when staff are working with. Yeah, look at options and, yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you guys for coming in. We really appreciate it. And Wheatland County absolutely recognizes the value in our seed plants within and in our adjacent municipalities. And we appreciate the work that you do. And we know how integral it is for our seed producers and our egg producers. So thank you for the work that you do. We just have a brief, I'll just wait for Margaret. We just have a very brief matter At our October 2nd council meeting, I think it was October 2nd, we were having discussion around the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board interim growth plan and their interim regional evaluation framework. And staff had presented on both, but when Councillor Bigger and I made our motions, we both just made motions in terms of the interim growth plan. I think it's important that we have a motion in our minutes approving the interim regional evaluation framework as well. So if I could just have a motion for approval. It was presented by staff and our discussion was around both. We just weren't clear in our motion. IREF. Thank you, Tom. Any Is that your motion? Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. While we're waiting, Glenn, you had mentioned that you would like to discuss video recordings.
Yes. I've had quite a few requests. I've had quite a few requests or questions too, as why our organizational meeting is not, there's no recording available on the county site. So I'd like to put a motion that I believe we have a recording. I would like to see that posted. And so originally when we did the recordings, it was council activities, and for some reason, and as last year too, I found out too, last year's organizational wasn't on either. I don't know if we have that, or, but from their perspective, this year one, that was the one they really want to watch. So I'll put a motion on that. Staff, I don't know what the proper wording is, post it on the YouTube or however it is.
I actually had the same calls and concerns. I didn't know where I stood on them. They actually told me that it was last year's was posted, but then I looked and it wasn't, so I wasn't that worried about it. And to me, I mean, I fully support posting everything we do in here. I think that's transparency. I think that best way. Somebody really wants to watch the organizational. We sat here for a half an hour and picked committees. I mean, that's what you do for fun. That's
I
interesting.
guess my comment would be, I don't know if we need a motion for it. I think, as Glenn said, it's part of council. It should just, we have one already, that council proceedings be recorded and put out there. It should be part of that. Just put it in. I don't know if you need a.
I just don't.
It's part of.
Two comments. So under our procedural bylaw, we do have a note that our regular meetings, I'm just finding it. We do have a note where council may instruct the CAO to video record all regular council meetings and post on the county website. And under organizational meeting, we don't have that note currently. So we could look at adding that to the bylaw or just understanding that the organizational meeting is a council meeting. The only second note that I would make is just that council wasn't aware during that meeting that it was being recorded, because Alan had indicated he would record it for note taking, but that it wouldn't be posted publicly.
I swear that we were meant to.
Alan, is it considered a regular council? A meeting of council?
I think the motion says all meetings of council.
Yeah.
It does smell good.
Let's break.
And I'm not making those comments for or against posting it. I have no issue with it being posted. It was how it was presented to council during that day.
I'm in favor of posting it. I know other municipalities do things a little differently than us. Some of them have a closed door meeting and come out into the public. That is an option as well if we're having, just if there needs to be frank and honest discussion. I understand why it may not be posted sometimes for feelings or how things go, but it is politics, so it is what it is. I have no problem with that.
Further discussion? Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two things. The first thing, there was a problem with one of the cameras, so there is some black spots, and I think you can hear some of the conversation, so it's intermittent. That's been rectified, so we shouldn't have that problem today. And the second thing would be committee of the whole meetings. And if you want those posted, that's totally no problem there, just so we have an understanding, so.
I don't have an issue with posting committee of the whole meetings. If we say something that we shouldn't say, I think we should be open as possible. I don't really feel like I've never said anything that I don't mean, and people can feel free to say what they want about that, but I'll stand beside anything I'll say.
Anybody else have any comments?
And to Scott's point, the open and fair, open and frank conversations. Like I said, you should be able to stand beside him. We shouldn't, if you have an issue, you shouldn't have to go to closed doors to talk about it. We can talk about it here. We're all civil adults here. It's coming from the 21-year-old. So
that background is, and I'm sure Alan can say the same, different councils I've sat at or been around, things get pretty heated at that time. So it could, you know, I'm not saying that we're like that in any way, shape, or form. I think it was done very well and how we do things, and I like that, but I've seen it in other places, so.
Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we will put that on the website probably today. I look to Mackenzie because she'll do that. And then we'll ensure that all meeting agendas have that statement on the top that these meetings are recorded and will be posted. So.
Thank you. So we can move into council reports. 3.4. I did that. That was that motion we just made. Division 1.
I'd like to say 2 months in a row it's been on the computer. So after a year, I finally got the hang of it. And I would just like the 3rd of October was supposed to be ASB. I don't know why I put planning priorities. Really, I don't. And Alice as well. But other than that, I don't have. I think maybe Tom, if I missed anything, you can speak to the ASB conference. We had the chair and Fieldman meeting as well, but we did nothing. We toured a rec facility actually at Alderside, the one right across from the lights on the west side of the number 2. And other than that, we did nothing in that meeting. I think, I don't know if we can use the Alberta beef producers pamphlet, but I would like to see the county show the changes in the antibiotics that are coming down the line. I'd like to have that out to producers. It's on my report. It's on the Alberta beef producers site. That's the exact pamphlet we got. It was a pretty, I don't know how everybody took it. Nobody, I think, is really happy with the way they're going. Just makes it harder and most likely more expensive for producers to treat their animals. The resolutions, there was only one that brought up quite a bit of discussion, and it was the cleaning of farm equipment from producer to producer and from dealerships to producers. But it was mentioned multiple times that it's pretty hard to enforce. You can't open that up without opening a bunch of other. The purpose of the resolution was to hit on invasive weeds. So the one fellow from Cyprus, I think it was, he bought a Valmar or something like that, and went to harrow his pasture and brought in a bunch of baby flower or something like that they just sprayed for and had to spray again $15,000. So he was just trying to take a hold of the dealership, but if you open that up, how can you say that you buy something off if I buy a piece of equipment off Glenn, am I gonna make the government fine them? No, you just don't buy. I just said, if somebody screws you, you don't go back to them. You don't go back to the dealership that cost that. And if you're gonna hit on equipment, you're gonna have to hit on hay, straw, because that's gonna be way worse than equipment. It's just opening up a can of worms. But other than that, the STEP program was another resolution that was passed, and it just talked about the STEP program's only allowed for incorporated farms and incorporated rural businesses, which we passed a resolution that advocated for the allowance of normal sole proprietors or partnerships and family-owned businesses to apply for the STEP. Because it would be like me, we're not an incorporated farm, so we can't apply for the STEP program. But with the minimum wage going up, if we were to, it would be easier for us to get employees in the STEP program. So that was passed. But other than that, I don't think there was anything else. Everything else is covered in my report. So I will move my report as presented.
Any questions or comments?
Question here.
Glenn?
Just a comment. I had once seeded noxious weeds in my hayfield, and I went back to the provider of the seed, and I found out they were allowed to sell 2% noxious seeds in their certified seeds. So it's not just machinery either.
You're just opening up a can of worms. And you just don't go back. Did you go back to him, Glenn?
They did give me a pail of spray.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
I got to know Jim.
All in favor of Jason's motion? Carried. And can we have a motion for the ASB minutes as well?
I'll move.
Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Division 2, my report is included in the package. I do have a few things to discuss. I was wondering if I might be able to bring a motion back to reconsider the motion that I made at our October meeting regarding our invoice from Rocky Ford Community Center. At the time, the motion was defeated with a request for Jason and I to take it to our next meeting with the Fire Association of Municipal Representatives. And I did bring it to that meeting. The consensus from that meeting was that everybody felt it was appropriate that Wheatland County cover the costs for that meeting, as it was a meeting to discuss our bylaw. And I also will just reiterate to council that my understanding is that there would be indirect costs if we had held the meeting here as well. So I'll put a motion on the floor to reconsider that motion. Any comments? Just to reiterate, the total cost for that invoice was $225. Do you have a comment?
I do have a comment. I believe Darcy told me it was paid. So.
I don't believe so. No, not yet.
I believe it's paid. Darcy told me it was paid. I don't know.
Sorry, Margaret, you had a comment?
So your motion is to rescind the motion, or you're putting a new motion?
My
on?
motion is to reconsider the motion that I made
Reconsider.
for Wheatland County to pay the community hall fee.
If we can confirm that the invoice hasn't already been previously paid by some third entity or something like that? I understand, but I just want to make sure somebody else didn't step up and pay it. Okay. Okay. Then I'm okay paying it.
Regardless if it's paid or not, if the feeling is that we pay it, the motion's got to be that, and then they follow it through, and if somebody else has paid it, then they get reimbursed their funding, that's all.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Also under my report, you'll see that there was a letter attached from Gleason and District Community Center Board. They have made some requests for us to consider in doing up our budget for 2019. What I would request council consider is that we refer this letter to staff to work with their board in prioritizing their requests and bring back an RFD for council consideration.
So I have a question, and when I read through that, why are they not applying for the funding that's available through the CURB program? For one thing, some of that is municipal. If there's sidewalk issues, then yeah, maybe that's municipal. The paving of the parking lot and anything to do on private property, which is, they own the property, we don't. They bought it from us. My concern is that if we start doing that, it mitigates what the CURB program is doing, and we'll start getting it from other entities. They have the option of the CURB, and I think that's where they should be going for these. If there's an issue with sidewalks, that's an issue they take up with our administration as far as our property. But no, I wouldn't be in favor of reviewing that with them, other than refusing it and telling them we go through the proper channels for their funding.
Okay.
I fully agree with Ben. The sidewalk issues, yeah, wheelchair ramp should probably be there, but paving a quite large parking lot and adding stalls, I mean, I don't know if that's our job. They did a phenomenal job of using the CURB funding to their benefit, of replacing the siding, the front, and the doors on the hall. Looks phenomenal. And they know how to go about the right way, so they can apply for it again. But I can't support that.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes. I just, when you, with the wheelchair ramp, they also use that facility for a voting station, do they not? And usually if that's your regular voting station, there is grants to the federal government for wheelchair ramps. I know other communities have accessed that, and the federal government program for their elections, Canada elections, I think it is, has grants available for wheelchair access.
Similarly to other halls, I don't believe we've ever done anything like this for. It's all been through the existing programs we have. So, my 2 cents.
So perhaps would council just consider a motion for staff to discuss this letter and look at what's within the purview of the municipality, whether that's sidewalks or that type of thing, and just point the board in the direction of the CURB grants for other requests?
Is this a request? Is this letter a request for funding?
Yes.
If so, then I'll move that we refuse the request for funding and ask the community to go through the CURB programming. And if there's anything that has anything to do with the municipal, like the sidewalk, then they deal with administration separately on that. But as far as what's...
And I should have clarified, I don't believe the sidewalk was necessarily a request for funding for their group to do it, but a consideration for us as staff and council are considering our budget.
That's why I say they get a hold of staff and let them know about it, and it goes on their work program when it gets done with their work that they, not as a special project, but as work that's done, yeah.
Just for clarification, I believe they didn't do the wrong thing in coming to their area councillor for issues of the sidewalk. I think we can refuse their funding for the first point or whatever points. I think it's just the first, all the rest is sidewalks. Is that? Yeah. But I think Amber's done her due diligence of bringing it to council and staff. And from here, I don't think they have to, I think staff knows about it now. So staff can go through the proper terms.
So at this point, we wouldn't be considering the paving,
Yeah.
but we would be deferring to staff to investigate the issues with the sidewalk and accessibility of the building.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Or does that not capture it? Sorry.
No, when you're talking the accessibility, you're talking the wheelchair ramp? No, that's still their property. It's still there. If there are other grants out there that will cover that under, and if they don't, then that too can be covered through the CURB program somewhere, but that's not the council's, as far as I'm concerned.
I believe right now, like sidewalks in the hamlets, our crews have a schedule, and every year they replace, and if there's safety concerns, they'll go out and address them. So I think staff knows now that somebody should go out and have a look. As far as all the other ones, know that we have CURB funding for that, and
Okay.
so Ben's motion, I don't know how you're going to reflect that, or did
I
you make
think
a motion?
Ben's motion did reflect that. I believe it was to refuse any requests for funding to the board and to direct staff to look into anything that is under the purview of the county, and that we will direct their attention to the CURB grants for future requests for, or any, yeah, right. Does that reflect your motion, Ben? Okay. All in favor of Ben's motion? Carried. I also just I just missed on my report that we had that IDP meeting with the MD of Foothills. It went very well. We approved the terms of reference for both the committee and the review process. Our staff put together a project work plan that was approved and a public engagement plan that was approved. There's also a consideration that council needs to decide. The Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board approved at our last meeting that the next 2 meetings will be strategic visioning meetings, where they have invited 3 elected officials from each municipality, along with 1 senior administration, to meet on November 23rd and December 14th. So we just need consensus from our council who we will be sending. And it could be fluid as well. So if 3 of us were available for one but not the other, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same 3 for both strategic meeting dates. But we should have some direction for that.
Through the chair, if at all possible, it should be the same 3 to keep consistency.
I think that would be good, yes. Glenn?
The process would be this special 2 meetings would make a recommendation to the board, or is this going to just be some talks on the direction, or is there actually going to be the end result would be some sort of a document, this is our vision, then it would be voted on by the board? I'm not sure what the...
They didn't state at that meeting that I was at what the necessary outcome might be. The sense that I got from the meeting was that it would be some higher level discussions that would more shape the work of the board. So I'm not sure that they're necessarily trying to arrive at a document, but more to get some consensus around what the major issues are and what needs to be worked on for those final plans. And I do have a document with 10 questions that the chief officer of the CMRB has circulated. It's in a kind of a survey format. And so we'll need to be able to answer some questions like what is important to us as a municipality? What are the top 5 challenges currently facing our municipality, which we think regional planning can help address? The top 5 priorities for our region, the top 5 issues you currently face when working with your regional partners, which organizations and or groups do you see as being stakeholders in our municipality? How would you define success for the Calgary Metropolitan Region? Representing a member municipality of the board, what function do you currently see the board filling? What function do you see it filling in the future? And what do you see as being some of the benefits or drawbacks of being a member of the CMRB? So I can circulate these. They're not in a format that's easy to circulate, but I can circulate them to council if people have comments. I will need some feedback for that November 23rd meeting, so perhaps if we could do it via email, and I'll compile council responses and kind of amalgamate them into one response. November 23rd and December 14th. My recommendation might be that council consider having myself, Deputy Reeve, Glenn Kester, Councillor Clausen, and Councillor Eichert be considered for those 3 positions because of the work on the committees that are under the CMRB. There was some discussion that they were particularly interested in some tie-ins just between land use and servicing. So that's something for council to consider.
I'm good with those representatives. I just would like to ask that the vision of ag be a very high priority, I think, between Foothills and us and even Rocky View with the little ag as they do have. But I do think it is a pressing issue, and I would like to
I'll make sure that I highlight that in our responses, and I will send those questions out so that everybody has an opportunity to provide feedback on them.
Also maybe get some input from staff as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Those questions, ongoing issues that.
Absolutely. Yep. So is council all right? I'm not sure that we need a motion. Is council all right that if the representatives at the CMRB determine who's available and 3 out of the 4 of us will represent the county there? Okay. Okay, so could somebody put a motion on the floor for 3 representatives? And if they have travel costs or whatever. Yes, so it will be for the CMRB board meeting on November 23rd and December 14th. Yeah, and they are closed sessions, and they are requesting up to 3 elected officials. So if the motion can reflect that. Okay, Ben has a motion. Any comments? All in favor? Carried. Another matter, Deputy Reeve Kester received an email on October 22nd, and it was forwarded to me on October 29th, and I'm just going to read it. It's not very long. In discussion with the mayors of Strathcona County, Leduc County, and Sturgeon County, we have discussed submitting an ACP application for an initiative that will focus on raising the awareness of the contributions of the agricultural sector to the Alberta economy. The members of the CMRB may be aware of the work currently being undertaken by the EMRB to develop a regional agriculture master plan. Through the RAMP task force, which includes representatives of the 4 rural members, the board hopes to complete the plan within the next 18 months. The goal is to ensure we better and more wisely manage prime agricultural lands in the region. The objectives are to conserve adequate supply for local food security, minimize fragmentation, and promote diversification and value-added production. To ensure these outcomes are realized and to position the agricultural sector for success in both the region and the province will require support from the provincial and federal governments as well as broad stakeholder groups, including the general public. Like other industry sectors throughout Canada, for agriculture and agri-food to succeed, it needs to gain support from the public. This requires having the social license. The agricultural sector has already faced challenges from different interest groups. Unfortunately, much of the negative publicity arises from misconceptions, misinformation, and myths, whether it's on the use of herbicides and pesticides, GMOs, animal husbandry, or environmental impacts, to name a few. For the agricultural sector to succeed and capitalize on the many opportunities before it will require a measured and calculated approach. The initiative we are proposing would, through a RFP, retain experts to develop a campaign to educate and inform the public about how, through responsible agricultural practices, we can provide safe and local food sources and become a major exporter, creating employment opportunities and additional revenues for all 3 levels of government. Parkland County will lead this initiative and would require minimal staff resources from your respective municipalities. Applications for the next round of ACP funds is November 1st and does require a council resolution from the supporting participating municipalities. I would ask those who are able to have a motion come before your respective councils and subsequently forward your logos and electronic signatures that can be added in your submission. That's the end of the email. It's from Rob Shagek, Mayor of Parkland County. You'll note that while it was circulated just right at the end of October, their deadline was November 1st. So Glenn and I briefly discussed this, and we feel that the timeline, and hopefully I'm reflecting your thoughts appropriately, the timeline wasn't adequate for council to give direction to this motion, and then it might be better, something to be better to be brought to our ASB for future consideration for the next round of funding requests. Is that reflective, Glenn?
Yes, and also tried to find it, but I got an email from the Reeve of Rocky View, Greg Belkey, Secretary Assistant. Anyway, lost the email someplace in my phone. And they have communicated that they didn't have time to talk about it as a council or Ag Service Board, and they are suggesting that they'll be talking about it on our Ag Service Board, and maybe next year would be a more appropriate time. The reason why this is coming up from Parkland County is because of the capital region. That's one of their new projects, is a agricultural master plan. For the Calgary Regional, it's not on the books. We're still in our infancy. Made comments before at the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board. There are people that want to know what the Capital Board is doing, and I've made comments saying, well, if you want to be the same as the Capital Board, what are we doing here? We'll just join up with them. I believe we do our own policies, and I believe that this is significant to us, that we should defer it to our Ag Service Board and be prepared for when the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board they will be asking for an agricultural impact, whatever it is. I believe it's maybe even a ministerial directive, but everything in due course, and I support that we do it for ourselves, make it pertinent to our own.
Thanks, Glenn.
And I guess further to that, there is a caucus meeting at the RMA for the, I believe, CAOs? Rural. Yeah, and Reeves of the Growth Management Board. So they will be asking, and I'm thinking it's important for Amber to have a consensus from this council what we want to do.
Be aware, at least this is my opinion, is we have such a small area that is actually going to be affected by this, that the whole county, but there are people, when the city people talk about an ag policy, it is not anything that is really practical. They're talking about, growing up all your food in your area and all that kind of stuff, and look outside. My banana plant is just taking a beating out there. So if you don't like bananas or you don't like anything, any kind of fruit. So understand that this can be these guys like Parkland County, Strathcona County, perfect example. Some of the best farmland, 100 quarters of it got sold, and it's just sitting there. And it's the best farmland in Alberta. Like, they're talking 24 inches of dirt, black soil on top of that. So, everything isn't as it appears to be. There's a lot of people that the city of Calgary will be pushing agricultural because they don't want to move subdivisions when they take the land over, right? So that's my jaded look. I might be wrong there, but so we have to, we're a small area here, so whatever gets affected by this is not affecting the county as a whole. So.
Any other comments? So I'm not sure that we need a motion, but do I have consensus that I'll take this and indicate that we would be forwarding this request to our Ag Services Board for future consideration, and that the timeline wasn't reasonable for bringing a motion forward at this time. Okay, thank you. A couple other notes. Councillor Wilson and I did meet with representatives from each of the fire associations. You look so nervous. From each of the fire associations. And as well, some of our municipal partners were at that meeting. The meeting went very well. We went basically line by line through several sections, not the entire bylaw, but several sections of the bylaw that there were issues raised with. And for the most part, I believe we came to consensus on it. And I believe legal is reviewing the revisions that were done. Administration actually tracked through and made changes as we were discussing them so that even the wording and stuff could be agreed upon by those individuals that were there. So that was really good progress there. Contingent on staff having it prepared in legal. The other thing I'll highlight is at the October. A comment, Glenn?
It's a comment. When we, I don't know, when we have an agreement, council's in the habit of doing it and we send it out and we have other people sign on. Can we reverse it and have everybody sign on that they like this bylaw before we vote on it? And make sure everything, and they can't come back and say they weren't consulted, or, and that'd be their say. And if it's not right, present reasons why they want it to change. I would like to see it in writing. I don't know if it's possible or not, but
I think we're in
I
a
get tired
collaboration.
of, well, not tired, but when I sign at home for different things, you sign, then somebody else always looks at it and signs it on an agreement. And it's hinged on the person with the money or the corporation signs last. Here, we're the corporation and we're always signing first. And I'm thinking it would expedite matters if we were the last ones to sign. Just a thought.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alan or Jason, I believe we indicated at that meeting that all of the revised changes would be, like the bylaw would be amended and then it would be sent to our legal. And I believe we indicated we would be forwarding it to the association presidents for consideration or any feedback prior to it being brought back to council, but correct me if I'm wrong.
That's 100% correct, Madam Chair. So at this point, I'm just waiting for our staff have taken a look at it, and I've asked them to pass it on to legal. So anticipating next week or so, I will forward that and CC both yourself and Councillor Wilson when that gets forwarded, and then we can move forward from there. So,
Glenn, I think that's excellent, and that was what we tried to build into that process, and everybody really did appreciate that. And we let them know that it was in no way binding. This is just considerations that are being made, or considerations that will be presented to council, revisions that will be presented to council for consideration. So we were very transparent that any proposed changes were simply being proposed, and we were just going to be bringing that back to council.
So my question would be then, because it's being vetted by our lawyers.
Yeah.
If they don't agree with everything you guys come up with, are they willing to live with that, or are we going to get into the same thing again, or are we going to take what comes back as?
So I had our notes from legal with me in that meeting, and we were very cognizant of those notes, and where legal counsel had indicated we had some latitude, and where legal counsel had indicated we did not have latitude to be negotiating clauses. And I don't believe anything that was revised wasn't considered negotiable by legal counsel. So we were cognizant of that. Of course, her opinion may change when she looks at it again, but.
Then we get a new lawyer.
But that's a good point. Like, we were very aware of the legal ramifications of what we were doing.
She's already made it more difficult than it could have been. And just a question to Alan, would it be possible to get the staff's comment? So when you CC us, will it be staff comments prior to legal or after legal?
Yeah, so any comments from staff are identified on there. It's a track changes document, so every change that's made on there has been tracked. So it'll indicate who did it, and actually, it might even indicate the date, but I don't recall. So the meeting that we had with them, I was doing the track changes at that time.
So it'll show that.
up as my initials, and I know Judy's made some comments, so, as well. So.
Any other comments on the fire bylaw?
Just trying to follow up with Glenn there. So are you thinking the final, what everything comes back from staff and from the legal, that document should be sent off and kind of just initialed that they're okay with it? Is that what you're thinking? Now, I don't know if, are we allowed to do that because it's not something that we've passed? It's not an actual document till we set it as a document. So.
These are changes that they had requested, and we just informally agreed, and as Madam Chairman Link had indicated, they clearly, I believe they clearly understand that it has to come back to council for final approval.
And I like it because, you know, in principle they did it, but until it's in paper documented, I like the idea of what you're saying, because that way, yes, we have the confidence that there's no loopholes, I guess, but as long as we're allowed to do that, but I don't know how long the timeline is going to take.
So through the chair, I don't know if I agree with that, because yeah, it's a bylaw, but it is not written in stone. It is still, it can be amended. The bylaw can be amended. It's, if they've agreed, you guys have met with them, you've all, the consensus, to me, when it comes back to council, we look at it and we approve it as or we don't approve it. I'm not going to go back out there and ask them for approval of a bylaw that we've taken this far and done as much as we have with this one that we don't do, because to me, we don't do it with any other bylaw. We've gone, I think we've bent over backwards with them to meet some of their demands, and I don't have a problem with that, but we don't do it with any of our other, like our, I'm just saying, I think when it comes back, if that's when you guys have been there, and if you say that that's what you guys agreed on, then we move forward with it, and it goes out there, and then if they have an issue with it, then they go through the process of the amendment to the bylaw.
Just 2 points. I would argue that this is a unique bylaw in the fact that it requires, it doesn't require, but part of it includes collaboration with outside parties that we're working with on this bylaw. And at no point I don't think we presented it as sending it to them for approval. They understand completely that that will be at the will of council and that the final document will be approved by council. We just saw it as part of that collaboration process in ensuring that the changes that we were making reflected basically what we discussed that evening. And for the most part, they were made live as we were discussing it, and there was consensus around the table from both Councillor Wilson and I on behalf of council and the Fire Association representatives that they were in favor of the changes. So I don't anticipate any issues. Of course, anything could happen, but they fully understood that it was a collaborative process. We were simply consulting them on where they saw, and some of their issues were very legitimate and actually helped us craft a better bylaw because of even things that were missed in the bylaw or things like that. So it was more of a consultation process. This is just one more step in that process. Obviously, the final step is it's coming back to council.
And I think I made that clear. I believe that I said that we get this good tonight, it's coming back to second reading before the end of the year. I actually said November, but that's okay. But they understand it's coming for second reading.
Alan, you had comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add that the Fire Commissioner's Office has not provided their comments yet, but I am understanding that they have done their review and we're just waiting to get those comments. So administration would like to have those comments included into the final bylaw as well. So when I say December 4th, that's what we're gearing towards. That's all depending if everybody gets their review and we get a report back from the Fire Commissioner's Office. Last thing I'd hate to do is bring back for second reading and then Fire Commissioner says there needs to be some modifications made to it. So that's Absolutely. the only kind of wild card that's out of our hands at this point. So.
Good point. Lastly, in my report, I just wanted to highlight at the October 26th Calgary Metropolitan Region Board that we did pass the 2019 budget. And as well, I can announce that Jordan Copping was hired as the chief officer. He was working in an interim position and he has been hired for the position. Lastly, Yes, of course.
I want to say thank you for you going, because I was all ready to go, and that morning I woke up deathly ill. And I did email Jordan to make sure that you're allowed to sit there, and I know I was attending for your absence, Glenn. And yeah, I felt really bad that I couldn't go there, and I'm glad that you stepped up and did that, so thank you very much.
I was happy to go. It was a very interesting meeting. There was some contention, and
You had to jump in with both feet.
it was interesting, but thank you. Lastly, you'll see, well, I'll make a motion for my report first that to be accepted. Oh, yes, Glenn, sorry.
I believe too, also at that meeting, there was a motion made to per diems.
Yes.
I had argued at the governance committee that there are different municipalities look at things differently. And I believe part of that policy should have been that the municipality, you can pay the per diems directly to the municipality instead of to the person. And I've also learned that in prior CRP, there was a mayor that's exactly what they did. They didn't feel comfortable taking it. So I'm thinking, I don't know if we need a motion, but whenever we go to a CM meeting, staff should be able to compile that and collect our mileage and our, I don't know if parking, they usually give you a free parking pass. If everyone gets them, I don't know. And also for the per diem, whatever it is, and make a batch.
So the revised member per diem and expense policy that was approved did address that, and there were 3 options within that policy that would be left up to each municipality or each municipal representative, whereby the representative could opt to either take the CMRB per diem, either excuse themselves from it completely and not have any transfer of funds, or where, like Glenn was speaking to, the member representative could request that the per diem be paid back to the municipality. So everybody seemed to be satisfied with that because it kind of met the goals of everybody around the table. There are some people, Mayor Pat Fuel actually brought up that his deputy that would be attending on his behalf has childcare expenses if he's a stay-at-home dad, and if he has to attend the meeting, they don't have a per diem structure, so it costs him money to go to the CMRB and childcare. So it satisfied that. It also satisfied the boards that don't want any funding from the CMRB, as well as giving that flexibility for it to go back to the municipality. So I think it was really good work by the governance board that Glenn sits on to make that policy that worked for everybody around the table.
So is there any motion made that anything that's the per diems paid from the board would go direct to the county then? Or is That's what I'm asking. Okay. That provides clarity, I would believe, for where we are, and we have a structure that's already in place, and if they pay back to the county, I'm fine with that.
Thoughts?
But I make a motion directing staff to claim the per diems on behalf of the county for all CMRB, including mileage and parking, whichever acceptable. Does that make sense?
So the CMRB will pay the attendee?
Glenn is proposing that it go back to Wheatland County.
Okay, so
The county would claim it.
okay, so you're suggesting you want me to let Jordan know that all reimbursements per diems are to be paid to Wheatland County?
I believe the representative attending the meeting will have to do quarterly claims as well. So I think we would actually have to do it, the claim quarterly, and then it would come back to the county, was my understanding at the meeting.
I think what they're trying to say is that the municipality the Wheatland County pays all per diems associated with the CM, whatever you want to call that outfit, and that the administration claim back from CRP.
Yep. Okay. All in favor? Carried. We vote for my... We didn't. I'll move that my report be accepted as presented. All in favor? Carried. Yeah, I'm going there right now. You'll see in the package, I included an RFD. I would like to attend the elected official education program. It's the Monday of RMA, and they are presenting the course, Community Development through Citizen Engagement. And so there's an RFD there. I am requesting my per diem and one additional overnight hotel stay for the Sunday evening as the course starts at 8:30 in the morning. And I will be attending 2 meetings that afternoon as well as Reeve. I don't have them in front of me. One is that rural caucus meeting for the CMRB, and one is just an RMA Reeves meeting. So there won't be an extra per diem because I'll already be there that day. Discussion. Under our code of conduct, we do 9.2 says councillors may attend such other training workshops or conferences of their choosing as long as there's sufficient budget available. And I did check in with Alan. There is room in our training budget, so. Okay, thanks, Jason. Discussion. Glenn?
It's been a hot topic through the years, paying for these courses. And I don't think there was at one time we were going to have a policy on how much each counselor could spend. But I know there's been counselors in the past that have paid the total of any courses they've taken. I believe I was on one down in Cardston when I think about it, that staff went to too. But it's always been the policy of previous councils that you pay for your own education or courses. So I don't know what's really changed since then. Yeah, that's all I need to say.
Just discussion, I don't have a problem with it being, if it's asked of council and we vote on it, then that's what the process is. I think if we don't deem it's appropriate, then I think that would be something else, but this is something that's offered by our RMA. Right?
Yeah.
At different times, how appropriate it is. I believe it's on public participation. Personally, I think we have excellent public participation. We have good turnouts at our open houses, our area structure plans. We all know we can get them in this room too. As far as counselors attending elected official courses, I don't per se, as long as it's, all I want to say, it was different, so be prepared.
Just a suggestion, last meeting there was a comment that asked of administration to look into having, because of the change in January of the taxation laws and everything else, to bring that group back together and revisit our per diems. That's a good place to have this. This can be part of that process, and let them take a look at it. Alan can explain to them what it's all about, and let them come up with a suggestion to the per diem for that.
Actually, Madam Chairman, if I may, Council had talked about our compensation consultants. That's the first avenue we're going through to do an external compensation consultant review. So Council wants that added. I need to know soon because they already started the process. So.
I think that's something they could look at and put a recommendation together for council to deal with that. And then we can deal with this issue this year separately.
I'm just thinking back to after last year, I went to an IDP ICF one and with Alan, and it wasn't even a consideration that it was because it was something pertinent to the county. But it was something that staff could have easily brought forward too. But it, me being an elected official gave me an understanding of that better, being there. And I was compensated for that. I wasn't even, it was the same kind of program too, so.
And my understanding was this didn't necessarily have to come before council, but just for transparency, I wanted to bring it so that everybody was aware. And if council is not in favor of paying for it, I'm happy to pay for it personally. I do think it will be of value to the municipality and the council. And I think you can trust that I'll bring reports back and also bring the information back to be shared with all of council.
Yeah, I fully support Relink going. I think, like she says, it's gonna, though, yes, we do have great community engagement as is, I always think there's room to grow. And that's the old Wheatland saying, there's room to grow. So I think it'd be a mistake to make her pay for something that will eventually help the overall county. So with that, I'll ask if Chair can call the
If there's
question.
no, is there further, yep, Scott?
Just clarification, do we want to have a separate motion for staff to look at, with that review, having some allowances for counselor training? So this clarifies this in the future, so we don't have to do this all the time.
Do we want to do two motions?
I would think that would be appropriate
Okay,
to do two.
let's
motions.
vote on
Yeah.
Jason's motion. All in favor? Carried. Scott, do you want to put another motion?
So the one for staff, though, is that not administration's?
He means for staff to bring back regarding council. So for staff to investigate or put together a proposal regarding compensation or a budget for individual counselor training. Any
So
further
said.
discussion? All in favor? Scott? Carried. All right. That's it. Sorry about that. Do we want to break now, or do we want to finish council reports? Sure, yeah, let's, Division 3 council report.
It's short. Yes, so of course, October was a lean month for me. What's not in there is in October 31st, Wademsa board met with the union, AHS union, and started the wage negotiations, and it'll continue at the end of November. Yeah. They just presented what they wanted. Yeah, I don't, if anybody has any questions. I guess there wasn't much there. Well, I did go to the Chamber of Commerce regional meeting. That was very informative, actually, for me, on what programs they offer and what role the chamber does. It was actually good for me to be there. Yeah, so if nobody else has any questions, I'll move my report as read.
All in favor? Division 4?
My report's outlined, and if anybody has any questions, it's all very straightforward, and if there's no questions, I'll move my report.
Any questions for Tom? All in favor? Thanks, Tom. Division 5?
Highlight of mine, attending the Rocky View County office grand opening. That's an amazing facility they have there. They have lots of outdoor parks, settings for staff, and it's going to give them a good future, good moving forward. They're very excited to be out of the city of Calgary. And I apologize for the September stuff on the bottom. Clearly, I was sick when I was doing this because I left some stuff from the last time. But any questions other than my silliness there, please ask. And I moved my report.
Not seeing any questions. All in favor? Division 6?
There are a couple of CMRB minutes in there and governance, Wheatland Regional and Canadian Badland minutes. Apologize for nothing written down, but I was harvesting at the time. And I did get it down. There was a couple other things I wanted to make council aware of. I believe it was in the paper. I missed the lunch, but Lodge has a new activity bus, which was well supported. I think we got all our logos on, and it's been out and about in the country. On the 30th, myself and Deputy Chair Ellen Larson and our CEO of the Lodge, we went up to Edmonton to meet with Associate Deputy Minister Seniors about building the Lodge. Town of Strathmore went up, the Mayor Pat Fuel and James and Lorraine rounded out our delegation. Last year, the money was just made available to Indigenous communities. There's been no new money since, but there is planning money we applied for. And this is going to sound familiar, but their granting structure is under change. They want investment, is what they're calling it now. And it's much the same as the roads. They won't give us the roads because that's a grant and that looks bad on the book. So they're going to do investment, and they'll actually end up owning the whatever facility we build. We have a lot of options and things, so we will be working on that. So we did that. And also, some of you might have got a CHMB Solution Lab. There was a meeting today from I believe it's a federal sponsored money that comes to the province. The province doles it out, but I believe the rules come from the feds on how it gets doled out, and it's for social housing. And I was thinking on going on that, but after we found out it was for social housing, we have very little control over it. I don't know if one of our staff from they weren't even sure what city it was in at the time, so we'll have to wait and see at the next board meeting with that, how that shook out. Yeah, last night we had our WDEMSA meeting. We had our organizational. Everything's much the same there. There was council's information. Last couple of years, we've had steep increases in dispatch requisitions. I don't think they're requisitions asking for money. They are, in a way, voluntary. Went from $2 to $4 to $6 to $8, which it presently is now at $8. Everybody's still on. We had a motion to hold it at $8. I'm going to send a letter out to the municipalities. And in subsequent years, we'll be looking at modest increases so we don't have to go with such steep increases. Right now, we're still in the red with our dispatch operation, but we are managing at the $8 level. And there was also a suggestion made, and it was favorable, that if this council would like, we could get our operations director to come in, like much the same as we have our transportation give reports. They could come in at least on a yearly basis and make a report on, and a chance to ask questions on whatever side of the operation, how it's going. And I'm thinking that would be good for council, for the public to hear just all the things that we do here. So I'm thinking whenever staff gets a chance, could be invited here. And I think that's all I have for my report. I'll move it. If there's any questions, I'm glad to answer.
All in favor of approving Glenn's report? Carried. Division 7.
Thank you. It's on the website or on your computer in front of you there. There's some comments in there. One comment, Margaret, in the change, there's a change on my comments at the bottom. Evaluation will include gas technology study. It's a geotech study for each of the sites, not gas technology. It's a big difference. So just a change in the wording. The other thing I'd like to mention is, well, I don't want to mention it, but I'm going to anyways. The landfill down in Drumheller had a bit of an issue last week. They had a fire showed up, the fire department got in there and they had it put out, and when they got to work the next morning, it was back raging full blown again on the east slope, so they got it back under control. They've done some remediation. They're waiting for a report from environment. They're down there investigating to see what it was. There's some speculation to how it was, what caused it. I'm not going to say what it was now because we have a little proof on it, but if it's what they think it might be, there may be some charges further down the road, but not to us. But anyways, it could have been a lot worse if it had got away from them and they couldn't get it under control. I talked to Alan, and I had Alan talked to the crew, and they had a hi-ho on standby for Friday if they needed it to go in there and start pulling some material out, but they did get it under control with their own equipment, so that's just information. And with Sewa, we have a meeting tomorrow with a outfit called Waste Away, is it? They're a landfill or an operations outfit. They're an international outfit that operates landfills. They deal with environmental, they deal with recyclables, and we're not really sure what but we are meeting with them here tomorrow. The executive is meeting with them tomorrow here at Wheatland County to discuss it, see where they're coming from. They have lots of funding behind them, and we are meeting next Thursday with an outfit called Atoll, A-T-O-L-L, which are, I think it's Chinese way, but they're international funding agents for these types of operations that have been trying to get us to meet with them. So we are meeting with them next Thursday. I'm not sure where that will go, but it's interesting. And the government has been working with us. Where they haven't been up to now, they are now working with us on these grants that we're applying for these ACP grants, and making sure that the government staff now is making sure that we have the right numbers and the right names and they're giving us the key points so that it'll slide through so they are showing more favoritism than they have in the past. So it's a positive, and we're hoping like hell it works. The other thing with Sewa is we've gone from 40 cents to 53 cents this year for requisition to the municipalities. Talked to Alan about it, and he said it probably wouldn't affect our budget that much, and it won't. It brings us back to our 2013 levels. We've been slipping a bit, and it's just to maintain our management is basically all it does. The rest of it is all through grants, and we've gone through just about $2 million worth of funding through granting to get this thing where it's at. So hopefully it works, and that's all I have to say. Other than that, the rest of it is there. I'll move my report if nobody has any questions. Oh, yeah, I'll move my report and I'll bring the other one up.
I have a question, Ben. I talked to you on the phone about Sewa a little bit, and if there was a possibility that we could bring something for a future meeting, possibly in camera, about Sewa.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring that up after after my report.
My apologies.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
Any other questions? All in favor? Carried.
So just as what Scott was talking about, we did chat, and I talked to our administrator, and I asked her, she was supposed to have me, and I've got calls in here. She's been calling me all morning, so it's probably there, and I haven't answered it. But the in-camera part that Scott's talking about, yes, I would talk about that in camera, but not here. But does this council wish to put in a request for expression of interest to host an ECW, an Energy from Waste system? I hadn't put it on the table for council before because of the council that was in place and some of the issues around that, so I stayed away from there. And but I think that's a different council sitting here now, and there may be, and we still have room for some municipalities if they have. I know we've had a couple come on in the last year, And we're getting pretty close to the point now where we're going to do, like I said, this funding comes through, we're going to do the geotech on these siting places. So if we're going to do it, we need to do it right away. And she was sending me the information to do a request for expression of interest. So if this council wants to look at that, then need to do it in the form of a motion to send something off to say, well,
Ben, does the timeline allow for administration to bring an RFD back just with the costs and potential benefits or
that
for the proposal?
the
or-
request for the
Expression of
request for the expression for the request for the expression of interest is just that. It's an expression of interest. Then it gets looked at. Then that all comes back to you after that. It all gets fed out in the process. There's no cost for the expression of interest. It's just to get it on the table, and then the expression of interest that you will be filling out will have that breakdown in there. You need power. You need location to highway, major highway, you need location to major power, you need location to major water. All those things have to be, and that'll all be. And hopefully out of the 7, 8, 9 that we get, we bring it down to 1 or 2 for the final. And we do have a study done by the U of A that their tabletop study does put it pretty close to this.
Do you want to put a motion on the floor for the expression of interest?
I would rather somebody else put it on the floor.
I'll put
but
the motion on the floor.
Okay. Discussion? So this is just,
for the expression of interest to host an EFW.
I'll make the motion, and I think we have to do whatever we can to try to get the facility here in Wheatland County. I saw the report. I was there that one meeting, and I think it's a phenomenal opportunity.
Alan?
Just to clarify, EFW means energy from waste.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
That's okay.
Any other comments?
I agree with you, Jason, and I think when we're looking at the future of some of our areas and the economic drivers that we need to have there to support some development and/or improvements, this checks a lot of those boxes, and I would like to pursue it. Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
All in favor?